I guess I can. Oh, we have Paula join us now. Hey, Paula, you're muted. You can unmute yourself if you'd like to chat. But I just want to make sure that. Okay.
Hello, sorry.
Sure, Paula. Okay, so here is, I just put a link in the chat to this week's passage in question, and it's chapter 2, section 2. So without further ado, we could read section 2. It's called the Atonement as Defense. So before reading this, I think this is interesting because it's, as a pre-note, this is, I believe, if not the first, one of the first times where the reader is addressed directly as you. Hey, Karen. Let me stop this link there.
Hi, I was trying to log in on my Chromebook outside and I couldn't get in.
Oh, boy.
So I'll try it another day.
When the time is right, we'll be outside.
Yeah, just thought I'd get some more fresh air.
I hope you let the fresh air in the house, too.
Everything is open. Every door, every window.
Excellent. Okay. We are in section 2 of chapter 2. Okay. It's called the Atonement as Defense. So, what I was just saying is that this is the first time, if not the first, one of the first times where the reader is addressed directly as you, and where the author is addresses the author's self as I. And so, if we can just, if we're not fully committed, let's just take a ride in fiction, so to call it, so to speak. Just imagine that this is something being said to you by Christ consciousness. Just imagine that this is being said directly to you. You can do anything I ask. I have asked you to perform miracles and have made it clear that miracles are natural, corrective, healing, and universal. There is nothing they cannot do, but they cannot be performed in the spirit of doubt or fear. When you are afraid of anything, you are acknowledging its power to hurt you. Remember that where your heart is, there is your treasure also. You believe in what you value. If you are afraid, you are valuing wrongly. Your understanding will then inevitably value wrongly, and by endowing all thoughts with equal power, will inevitably destroy peace. That is why the Bible speaks of the peace of God which passeth understanding. This peace is totally incapable of being shaken by errors of any kind. It denies the ability of anything not of God to affect you. This is the proper use of denial. It is not used to hide anything, but to correct error. It brings all error into the light, and since error and darkness are the same, it corrects error automatically. True denial is a powerful protective device. You can and should deny any belief that error can hurt you. This kind of denial is not a concealment, but a correction. Your right mind depends on it. Denial of error is a strong defense of truth, but denial of truth results in miscreation, the projections of the ego. In the service of the right mind, the denial of error frees the mind and re-establishes the freedom of the will. When the will is really free, it cannot miscreate because it recognizes only truth. You can defend truth as well as error. The means are easier to understand after the value of the goal is firmly established. It is a question of what it is for. Everyone defends his treasure and will do so automatically. The real questions are, what do you treasure and how much do you treasure it? Once you have learned to consider these questions and to bring them into all your actions, you will have little difficulty in clarifying the means. The means are available whenever you ask. You can, however, save time if you do not protract this step unduly. The correct focus will shorten it immeasurably. The atonement is the only defense that cannot be used destructively because it is not a device you made. The atonement principle was in effect long before the atonement began. The principle was love, and the atonement was an act of love. Acts were unnecessary before the separation because belief in time and space did not exist. It was only after the separation that the atonements and the conditions necessary for its fulfillment were planned. Then a defense so splendid was needed that it could not be misused, although it could be refused. Refusal could not, however, turn it into a weapon of attack, which is the inherent characteristic of other defenses. The atonement thus becomes the only defense that is not a two-edged sword. It can only heal. The atonement was built into the space-time belief to set a limit on the need for the belief itself, and ultimately to make learning complete. The atonement is the final lesson. Learning itself, like the classrooms in which it occurs, is temporary. The ability to learn has no value when change is no longer necessary. The eternally creative have nothing to learn. You can learn to improve your perceptions and become a better and better learner. This will bring you into closer and closer accord with the sonship. But the sonship itself is a perfect creation, and perfection is not a matter of degree. Only while there is a belief in differences is learning meaningful. Evolution is a process in which you seem to proceed from one degree to the next. You correct your previous missteps by stepping forward. This process is actually incomprehensible in temporal terms because you return as you go forward. The atonement is the device by which you can free yourself from the past as you go ahead. Undoes your past errors, thus making it unnecessary for you to keep retracing your steps without advancing to your return. In this sense, the atonement saves time, but like the miracle it serves, does not abolish it. As long as there is need for atonement, there is need for time. But the atonement as a completed plan has a unique relationship to time. Until the atonement is complete, its various phases will proceed in time, but the whole atonement stands at time's end. At that point, the bridge of return has been built. The atonement is a total commitment. You may still think this is associated with loss, a mistake all the separated sons of God make in one way or another. It is hard to believe a defense that cannot attack is the best defense. This is what is meant by the meek shall inherit the earth. They will literally take it over because of their strength. A two-way defense is inherently weak precisely because it has two edges and can be turned against you very unexpectedly. This possibility cannot be controlled except by miracles. The miracle turns the defense of atonement to your real protection, and as you become more and more secure, you assume your natural talent of protecting others, knowing yourself as both a brother and a daughter, sister and a son, however we want to say that. So the atonement as a defense. This is, I'd say, a real introduction. The first point, we're introduced to the concept of atonement. And I get a kick out of this passage, which was in the email. The passage is in paragraph 6. It says, the atonement is the device by which you can free yourself from the past as you go ahead. It undoes your past errors, thus making it unnecessary for you to keep retracing your steps without advancing to your return. So it's certainly playing a lot of time games with us. I'm wondering what you guys think about that, or what you guys think about the atonement in general, or anything else that came up in that section. The atonement as essentially saving time although it takes time for it to happen.
I like the way this concludes. And as you become more and more secure, you assume your natural talent of protecting others, knowing yourself as both a brother and a son. So more and more secure. But I found that I like to switch things around in A Course in Miracles. And I did that when I studied it before. That my natural talent of protecting others makes me become more secure.
Sure.
The service, the whole idea that we're here to serve, that gives me a lot of security because it brings joy, satisfaction, and I'm doing here what I came to do, to serve.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like the old paradigm would say that we're serving others, but really we're just serving ourselves when we redefine what self is.
Yeah, yeah. So you mean everything comes from selfishness? Everything has a selfish...
As long as we have the same understanding of what the self is, and the self is not the self, the true self.
So that's where I've had a lot of my growth and healing, is to be in service to others. The more and more, but it coming from the right place. Not saying I'm giving to get, but jumping into it. Well, I guess I am getting, because I get, there's a lot of joy and satisfaction, and I feel connected. If I'm not doing it, I feel very disconnected.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, well, you're not giving to get, you're giving and actually receiving or accepting.
Yeah, and it's helped me receive. I have not been a very good receiver. Most of my life, I've been like pretty much a giver, but I wouldn't say I was giving from the right place. I would say that my motivation probably back in the day was to give so that I would be accepted or loved, was to give to get.
A condition yeah.
Yeah, there's conditions associated. So that's what I like about this. One of the things I like about this.
And I believe it's also, and if anybody has any other thoughts, please just chime in. You can feel free to interrupt. But another key component of this is really the atonements in general. It's kind of touched upon and danced around here, but it kind of mentions it emphatically and definitively as if we already know what it means. But we don't, naturally. I'd say that this whole book has telling Terry that there's definitions of terms and atonement. This whole book is really a definition of atonement. So that's the fundamental one line that's repeated timeless, throughout the text is the sole purpose of the miracle worker, the sole purpose of God's teacher, the sole purpose of a child of God is to accept the atonement for himself or herself. And
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I went back and I started reading. I thought I missed something. I thought my focus wasn't here, because I don't know what the atonement is.
Right.
So okay, that's all right.
Right.
Okay.
And I felt
So thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I was looking for, I kept looking for something that would tell me,
Yeah.
that would give me a definition.
Right.
Is it an event? Because like in paragraph 4, the second sentence, and it talks about long before the atonement began. And I'm like, okay, now was this indicating it's some kind of temporal event, that the atonement began. When did it begin? Everything else you know, and in the next paragraph, in paragraph 5, where it talks about the atonement is the final lesson, it keeps saying what it is, but it's not really what it doesn't really tell you what it is. And that's why
Sorry.
to listen to what you guys might help me understand about it.
I think that's our job today, is to begin to understand this.
What really stood out, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Terry.
I don't know who was online, but I was reviewing my notes from ACIM from 2010, and I was sharing with Timothy, Dr. Ken Wapnick's, a little bit of his glossary of terms. And atonement, the Holy Spirit's plan of correction to undo the ego and heal the belief in separation. Now that's quite a mouthful. So, but it's good to just think about, just to have it in there. The Holy Spirit's plan of correction to undo the ego and heal the belief in separation. The other thing that we brought up last week was extension. So he says, Dr. Wapnick says, extension, the ongoing process of creation wherein the Spirit extends itself.
Excellent.
I think some of these things become maybe a little better understood as we go through the whole book.
Absolutely. So I certainly suggest let's stick, because we talked a bit about extension last week. So let's keep it to atonement for this chat.
So what really stood out for me in the reading, and in your reading, Tim, and then my skim, is section 3, paragraph 3, about defending, that defending is natural, that everyone will defend his treasure, but it's about what is the treasure. So that really, that was strong for me. Yeah, I could spend a lot of time with that one question. And when we're defending the correct treasure,
Exactly.
then defending that's a positive. That's good. That's what we ought to be doing with our precious time. When we're defending the incorrect treasure or the elusive treasure, then that's not very fruitful.
Exactly. And that goes back to one of our previous discussions about having that attachment to what we make and create in our thought systems.
Mm-hmm.
And our beliefs, I think our beliefs, our fundamental belief system, that's our treasure. And having that faulty belief system, we're going to treasure it, but it may not be very fruitful.
Right. Well, I'll share with the group as quickly as I can that I really had a big moment with this. As you know, Tim, one of my treasures has been perfection at work. I'm a copy editor, and so I treasure that perfection. And I made a mistake at work this week, and it hit me hard. And I had a good interaction with you, Tim, and I had a wonderful conversation with my daughter yesterday about it, and I recognized, oh my goodness, I didn't have this language for it, but I'll use this language now, that I have been considering perfection as I've defined it in that world as a treasure. And by doing that, I realized just earlier today, that if I look at my concept of perfection as an energy, as an entity, as a living thing, I've been very, very mean to it. I've been very critical about it, condemning of the imperfection within the perfection. And when I realized that, my heart just cracked open. It was like, oh, the love just poured out. Mm-hmm. And so I think what happened today is what I'm defining as a treasure actually shifted away from what it was yesterday and my whole life to something different today.
Huh.
Hmm.
So in a way that error, the thing that you've been labeling an error, is really just a grand realization. The opposite of
My daughter called it a little bomb, like making the mistake in what I made the mistake in. She said, well, that was just a little bomb that went off for your benefit. Like, I was like, whoa, you're right. Like, the truth of that was very obvious. And then this passage relates so strongly personally to that experience. What am I, what are my treasures? What do I hold as
what
a
is this for? Back to the same question.
what was it for?
What is this for? And I think that does a good job of getting to our core motivations. That one. What is this for? Why am I taking on this role or this project?
Right.
Just another way.
I have a personal background of when you make a mistake, it's a very, 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 very not a good thing. You know, in the household, it was, I won't go into it, but it was not a good thing. And so of course the body builds up what it builds up to protect, right? But that is so passé. Not needed. That kind of protection, not needed.
No. It was at some point.
Yes.
On Thomas Hubel's book, it was an intelligent behavior created for that situation, but maybe not all future situations.
No, definitely not.
Excellent.
Yeah, Louise Hay would say, thank you to that. Thank you. You've served me well, but I no longer need you. That's like Hubel. That's similar to Hubel.
Yeah, it is. So the atonement, unless I heard somebody say something. The atonement. I think the atonement, when taken to its fullest extent, is the ultimate treasure, and that's what it's hinting at. That's what this section is alluding to. If you look at, the defenses, defending our treasure, and then it gets a bit more into this, how the atonement becomes the only defense that is not a double-edged sword. It can only heal. So there's denial. Denial is a double-edged defense, for instance, because we can deny the denial of truth, but we can also deny truth. So it can be used against us, denial. So it's just a neutral tool, kind of like, money. It's a neutral tool, anything physical. Atonement is this single-edged tool. There is no way for us to use it against ourselves. So that's another way of understanding what the atonement is, without even referring to it directly.
If you please, Tim, may I bring up an issue?
Sure.
This is a practical concern that I'd appreciate the group's interpretation of. In Canada, they allow dental hygienists to open their own clinics. There's no dentist there. So I went to get my teeth cleaned for the third time. And my understanding was, this is just at whatever level, that I'd been groomed by this woman and her husband who worked as a receptionist for them to somehow charge me $350 per cleaning. And I didn't understand it until the third time. So when I got the bill for the third time for 40 minutes of work. I did not say anything. I paid and left because who am I to judge or argue? If that's the bill, that's the bill. I've never ever complained about a bill. But in my meditation and prayer, what I got is that one of my treasures is honesty. And when this woman was speaking for 40 minutes about her family and this and that, and I'm silently thinking, just shut up and clean my teeth. I should have just been true to my own alignment. And when my drive came, I was rolling my eyes and looking at him and thinking, what is this? But I didn't say anything. So I was being dishonest with myself. But today, and she was very graciously saying, I'll give you a free polishing before your daughter's wedding next month. But you have to give me 1 week's notice. And I was thinking, yep, $30 free out of a double bill, right? So what I got today is your atonement is just to go see her and explain to her that I'm not comfortable, that my integrity, my own treasure has been violated because I did time you and I wasn't true to myself in saying, I don't want to know about your family, your rehearsed speeches. I just want the cleaning at the right cost. I don't want to be charged for the gossip. So that feels right to me, and I did not heed my own deepest knowing at the soul level.
So, yeah, there are a couple of things that I'd like to touch on. You said, who am I to question if a bill is, who are you not to? You're an equal party in this transaction. So I think you do have the right to, whoa, hold on, $300 for the, you can at least bring it up. I don't think that's going too far. But the second thing, more importantly, is I hear a lot of judgments in what you're saying, and it's self-judgment. It's self-judgment. So you're looking at your behavior and you're essentially saying, because I behaved a certain way, then I deserve such an outcome. But that's exactly what the atonement is forgiving self. There's no other to forgive. It's a forgiveness of ourself, of our misperceptions of the past. So who knows what that event was there for? Really, who knows? But when we perceive that we do know and we judge it, and on top of that judge it negatively, that's what the atonement was built for. That's when we say, Holy Spirit, in the Course in Miracles terms, I give you this illusion to take from me, and it's forgiven. So it's a forgiveness of self, being able to look at ourself, our past, our perception of our past, and forgive it. And the way we do that is essentially bring it up for the Holy Spirit to take. And the Holy Spirit takes it and just erases it as it never happened in reality. So there's no need to do, I'd say, but forgive yourself, perhaps.
Something strange happened. I remembered what Terry said in last week's meeting about peace is health. Was that what you said, Terry?
Yeah, that's what that's my understanding, that because if God is love, and I was reading it again, if God is love, and God and through Jesus was constantly saying, "My peace I give to you, not as the world gives." And I know that when I was going through A Course in Miracles and all the other courses at the Princess Margaret Hospital, everybody was asking for peace. So unknowingly, or I guess subconsciously, everyone's asking for healing. They're asking for health.
Sure.
And it's the peace. It seems to, I put the two together myself, that the more peace I got, the more healing I got. Also, I don't have as many colds because I spend a lot of time, at least a couple hours a day in meditation. And whatever brings peace, it doesn't matter. I was playing rock music today and dancing rock and roll, and I got peace through that. And whatever brings peace, the quiet, whatever it is, walking in the forest, to me, it's all health. It's all about health. If we don't have our health, we have nothing.
And health is a choice. Health is a state of mind.
Yeah, and I had an interesting, I was at a Bruno Gruning meeting yesterday, and we were talking a lot about that, and people were giving their testimonies, and I've had a lot of healing through the Circle of Friends. It's like the 7,000 doctors in our group who validate all the healings, but we were all saying the same thing. I mean, and you know, if you put a dot on a blank piece of paper and you draw a line from Louise Hay into the dot, or Bruno Gruning, or A Course in Miracles, they all end up at the same dot. It's all truth. It's the truth. And it's the peace. The peace is the truth, and the truth is the peace. But, you know, I'm still trying to, you know, obviously I'm still on the planet, so I have a lot to learn.
Well,
but giving also in the Bruno Gruning group of friends, we give to Bruno. And, you know, he's God's little helper. He doesn't do the healing. It doesn't matter how I do it, whether I say I'm going to give it to the Holy Spirit, I'm going to give it to Bruno, whatever. I give it away. End of it. I don't pick it up again. Never pick it up again. That's it. Finished. I give you it, and that's it.
well, what happened is that I could see that something had been done. Phil and Susie were vibrating something in collaboration, which made me feel as though they had rehearsed her speech, that they were coming at me in stereo, and that the only reason they were doing it is because it worked well.
Yeah, yeah. And you knew.
And so for me to judge not only myself but them had sucked up my peace. And immediately, I mean, it's not to question, but just to forgive. It doesn't matter who. I agree that it's myself.
Amen.
Yeah. So then I remembered Terry, and I said, you know what I mean? Atonement and repentance is a U-turn. And my son always tells me his favorite painter, Agnes Martin, said, "You will not sin against innocence." So I just put up my hands and said, ouch, ouch, ouch. Because my knee suddenly started hurting.
Oh my. Oh.
That's what did it. the
Oh,
knee said, "Stop it now." And then I remembered you, Terry. Okay? So I
wow.
started to
Yeah.
recite, "Peace is health, peace is health, peace is health."
Mm-hmm.
So I surrendered to truth. I
Mhm.
apologized, and that knee didn't hurt at all.
Wow, you had an instantaneous healing. Wow. Sometimes I found that when I was healing, um, whatever it was, whatever it is I'm healing, it escalates as it goes out of my body. And I understand, my understanding is, and this is just what I follow, is it can go out, often goes out through my feet. But if I broke my wrist and I did something up here too, but the healing came through a sharp thing down here, and I felt it, and I said, "Oh, that's the healing for over there." So this also comes up in this chapter where, God, I don't know where it is now. Maybe I've lost it. Sometimes we don't know, or sometimes we say, "Oh, I have a bad heart, therefore I've got to feel the change in my heart." But that's not how the Spirit works. It can be anywhere. I can get a pain in my ear that's healing my shoulder. I've had it happen.
I never quite thought about it that way. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yes, I totally appreciate what you just said, and I am grateful for the time. And what you just said, Tim, about this being a mutual transaction
Mm.
is, in my jargon, a win-win situation. That
Oh, wow.
life is about community and togetherness. And I'm not going to go too far with this, but essentially every one of us is in the material plane in these bodies for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the funniest things I've ever read is Sai Baba. I think everyone's familiar with him. He basically said, God gives every human being whatever idiot thing they pray for. It's usually health or money.
Yeah.
Because what he really wants is to hook us. He wants us, so he'll disperse whatever it is that we want, whatever it is, because we're so trapped in the material plane
Uh-huh.
that that's one way for him to get our attention.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because none of the stuff which is bad is actually bad. Everything is a blessing if we can alchemize it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
So, what I understand now after this discussion is that I need to pay more attention to my integrity, my honesty, and never again roll my eyes. Like that was the only thing I needed to forgive myself for, is the eye rolling.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That would, yeah. And if you're feeling something, trust yourself. If you're feeling that you have to communicate something with somebody, I think you should be in a place where you're comfortable with expressing that and being true to yourself, because you never know what. My mother is a psychic medium, and sometimes the stuff that she's guided to say makes absolutely no sense. Boxing kangaroos and stuff, just bringing that up in the blue makes no sense. But you never know what spirit can see that we necessarily can't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, you're coming from that true capital S self space.
Well, I also believe that I don't like to talk about karma or anything like that. All I know is that we are one, and any form of alignment that anyone sends our way is a broadcast. The heart is a receiver. So for me to discuss it here now is being abundantly communicated to the hearts of Philippe and Susie, because we're all one,
Mm-hmm.
we're all uplifting each other,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no way that I can improve unless I'm true to myself, and being true to myself with the help of the five of you is, I believe, the spiritual solution to this illusion.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shabana.
Thank you.
I'm very grateful that I feel greater peace than I did when I was meditating by myself.
It's true.
I got this same answer, but now it's 5 times stronger.
Absolutely. And that's I don't know if we've discussed this, but that's I know I had grappled with the whole idea of in order to have something we must give it, because that's one of those, you know, telltale seemingly paradoxes of the Course in Miracles. In order to have something we must give it. And you think of things in terms of physical, like apples. If I give an apple to you, Shabana, you would have an apple and I would have no apple. So in physical terms, it makes no sense. It doesn't work. But even in the realm of ideas, when I have an idea and I share it and it's shared with this group, I don't have minus one idea. I still have the idea, but the whole group has the idea too. So it is strengthened by sharing. And that's how we do have something, by giving it ideas, because really all we are ideas at the end of the day. So by sharing our ideas and our love, then it's strengthened and it's reinforced in our own experience.
And it does raise the vibration. It definitely hits at the vibrational level.
Absolutely.
And, Shabala, it does.
Absolutely.
So Tim, I'm curious about how you would work with 11.5 or 2.5.
Paragraph 5. So
yeah, paragraph 5.
good.
2.5.
So I just love some of these sentences. Like the first sentence of that: the atonement was built into the space-time belief to set a limit on the need for the belief itself.
So is that belief of atonement or belief on space-time or all of it?
The atonement, I wouldn't say is a belief as much as a fail-safe.
Yeah.
Space-time is the belief. That's the belief.
Set a limit on the need for the belief in space-time itself.
Atonement, yes. The atonement sets a limit. We can think of it as gravity almost. If it weren't for gravity, everything would be flying apart. There would be no, gravity sets a limit on how far we can venture apart from each other, because we're always mutually attracted. So gravity is it's just like atonement. Gravity is always attractive. There's no repulsion in gravity. It's always attractive. So it's just as gravity is the fail-safe for the universe, the gravity holds the universe together at the only distance that acts on a large range. Atonement is the aspects of the space-time belief. It sets a limit on it. It doesn't allow us to fully separate, allow us to separate in reality. It gives us not a double-edged sword which can set us infinitely backwards. It's only healing. There's only one way that it can be used. So because there's only one way that it can be used, it can be refused, but it cannot be misused. So people will inevitably use this atonement. And the more that it's used, the more closer we get towards, I guess, the time's end, which is known as the completed atonement, I guess you could say.
And the end of the need for learning, to finish the sentence off.
Yes. So learning, if we take that so the next sentence, the atonement is the final lesson in learning. Learning itself, like the classrooms in which it occurs, is temporary. The ability to learn has no value when change is no longer necessary. When we learn something, we're admitting to the universe that we don't know everything when we're learning something. Just by definition, we're taking on something that we don't yet have. So we're acknowledging that we're incomplete. But learning, when there is completion, no learning is necessary. The eternally creative have nothing to learn. So learning in space-time, learning and the physical, so the space and time are very intimately connected. The realm of perception. And miracles, atonement is essentially at the end of time, that's the final atonement. That's when everyone has come to agreement, has completely forgiven the past and ourselves. That's that final, last frame of time, so to speak. Miracles are a way, so let's say we have this whole line of time to cover. Miracles are a way of shortening the time. So we can let this whole thing play out infinitely. There is an end, but miracles allow us to bring that end closer to us.
So part 8 of that paragraph says, only while there is a belief in differences is learning meaningful. So I guess maybe when the atonement is complete or is, then there is no belief in differences.
Yes.
Anymore.
Yes. True, yeah. In other words, unity is realized.
Unity is realized. And that's the final lesson.
The atonement, yes. Yes. And miracles are a way of shortening time. The atonement is a way of abolishing time.
There you go.
And it says they're here somewhere. Miracles are a means of bringing the end of separation. Atonement is the end of separation.
Time is abolished when there is no recognition of differences.
Yes.
The recognition of differences no longer exists.
Well, think about it. There's two ways of having differences. There's difference in time and difference in space. So the abolition of time means that we recognize there is no other time to be. There is here now. The past is not here. The future is not here. Let's not bring that here now.
Yeah.
That's the abolition of time. The abolition of space is there is no other place but here. We are not separate. We are not in separate points in space. We are here.
That's cool. Thanks for differentiating that.
Thank you for appreciating. And it's here now. Like, a lot of times we can express the sentiment here or now. Now is the only time. But I have not heard all that much about here is the only place. It's equally important. if there were no time and we were frozen in this frame, there would still be different parts of space if we believe in space.
Other places, other spaces.
But it's like where have I always been? Where have we always been? Here. Here. We just take ourselves to a different here. We've always been here, just as we've always been now in time. We can think.
Right. Yeah. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I've got to tell you this quick. I am feeling tremendous peace right here, right now, because of the example that you gave us about the apple is a physical, tangible object.
Yes.
That can be counted. But the ideas expand. And what I did is I shared my treasure, which is my integrity, with Susie and Phil. I brought them into my heart and said, "You got my money, have some integrity now."
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, if you feel guided, I think you should go over and speak with them and just.
Oh, I'll be doing that.
Yeah.
But I'm not in a hurry to get there.
Oh, of
I mean,
course.
they've been extremely magnanimous to give me.
Well, the outcome is guaranteed. We'll put it that way.
Yes. But you see, for me,
Yeah.
like, I've never had a problem. I'm not a shy person. I can speak my mind always. But I did not that day. I was eye rolling because of their practiced manipulation. You see, one of my Hindu neighbors who was very highly advanced spiritually told me about 40 years ago that the only reason people commit crimes or anything is because they've gotten away with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Someone wrote a book about that. It was something like When Good Men Don't Speak Up, blah, blah, blah. Do you know that book, Timothy?
No.
This is what happens when good people don't speak up.
Yes, my body is reverberating with the truth of that. So anyway, all I know is that these two have it down to a fine art. They did not overcharge me. For the first two, they were just checking me out. And I know that they shared their treasure with me, which was their wonderful marriage and their business. And she's highly talented. It's a gripping narrative that the two of them put on me. But I've got something to share, which has brought me tremendous peace, which has come into my heart and take integrity as my gift.
In a sense, they've partly given you that gift. They've been responsible. These two people, the hygienist and her husband, have actually given you that gift.
Yes, they've enriched me.
That's what you're saying. They've given you the gift.
And of course, since they are you and you are they, it all just comes back around.
Yes, I reverberated again the minute you said that. Is that we're all uplifted.
So, yes.
Because of this, as getting back to you, Tim, it has to be a mutually beneficial exchange.
And
that
really,
pardon?
Yeah, the proper prayer for this situation or affirmation is, thank you. Thank you, hygienist, for bringing me this realization.
Mm-hmm.
No further dialogue.
Yes. Well, I may or may not say it, but right here, right now, I want to thank the Holy Spirit for bringing Tim, Karen, Paula, Terry, and the lady on the Samsung
And Shabana.
And me, yes.
That's right.
Gift. It's
Thanks is returned.
huge.
Thank you for the appreciation.
Yeah, gratitude is really important.
It brings a lot of joy, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it's the key. It's the key to joy.
Well, I wasn't complaining about peace, you know,
You brought it back.
and joy. And I guess there's one more. I think it's called love, whatever that is.
Of course, in Miracles will say, the purpose of this is not to teach what love is, because that is beyond our awareness. So let's just focus on forgiveness and perhaps joy to start. Love, man, talk about a loaded word like God in our culture.
Something that I find difficult is our vocabulary is insufficient to discuss a lot of this, and that's a little bit, we don't always have the words.
But I think we have the luxury today of even other languages. Like, for instance, there's a lot of energy. The word energy has a very precise definition in physics. So when we use energy to talk about what we really mean as chi, we can use that chi to better explain, so that physicists are not in an uproar when we talk about the energy of this person has a specific energy about them. Really, it's chi. And just as love in the English language is used for all these different types of love, the illusory love and the real love, I think agape in Greek is a closer word.
Yeah, that's the love of God. Yeah.
Beyond brotherly, the love of the love of somebody because they exist, the love of something in itself, all encompassing oneness love, perfect love, really, I guess. But it's a shame that we have to put a modifier on love to understand it.
Maybe we should leave love alone and then change all those other words.
Yeah.
All those ways love is used, find new words for all of that stuff. Like codependency.
Right.
The labeling is another problem. Labeling.
But, well, it is important to distinguish, to make the distinction between truth and illusion. In truth is easy. It's just love. In illusion, there's all these different kinds of love. There's this kind of love and this kind of love, but they're all illusory love. That's the only categorization that is needed.
Yeah, they're all something else. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Karen. When Tim was speaking, I saw a whirlpool. I was being sucked downward into a whirlpool.
You were?
Yes, when I was in that office. It was a very beautiful place, and I can totally appreciate why they wanted the money to pay off their mortgage, So I have compassion for their need to suck people, like it's basically a toilet,
Just flush that money down.
It wasn't a compost toilet. Maybe it was a compost toilet.
Water system.
There was a smell.
It sounds pretty smelly to me.
Yes, but I can appreciate that. Usually this is the rule of thumb that appearance is the opposite of reality. Almost always, the front that people put up, the facade, is not reality. So now, after this discussion, I could just see that I had pulled them up out of, you could call it Kundalini moving up. You can call it any name, but that was a toilet, for sure.
You got him out of the quicksand, out of the trap.
Trap is more like it. Yes, you've got it. You're psychic like your mom.
It's a plumbing metaphor.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I think what you're saying, Tim, applies more because you see, with traps and thinking of how to catch an animal, you cover the hole with a sack or something so that when the animal walks over it, they fall in. And they carefully arranged it so that it was only the third time that they really got me. So it wasn't necessarily plumbing. I think, the forethought, because of their own financial need, was trap is more accurate, not whirlpool or toilet. I'm ashamed of my
No.
judgment.
He gave us a laugh.
Keep in mind that everything is perfectly on schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever you had given away in terms of a physical thing is coming back to you. So there's no sense in worrying about it. It's a part of your path. And the love that you shared and the truth that was a result of this, that's the important part to focus upon.
Yes.
And I just can't help myself, so do forgive me, but I need to point out that traps can be quite beneficial, because if something falls down my kitchen sink and it gets caught in the trap, then it's not going to go through and cause damage further down. So we have to look at traps as like the little bomb, like my daughter told me, well, that's just a little bomb. And it's like, take a look at that. What's the upside of that now?
That's right.
Where's the benefit? What can we learn from this? What can we do with it?
That reminds me
Please forgive me. What is it? BALM, bomb or bomb? BOMB.
BOMB.
the explosion.
Explosion, yeah.
Okay, because you see, this one has now turned into a bomb.
The warning shot. So, Karen, your bit reminded me. I think it's a traditional Chinese or Japanese. Must be Chinese. It's a Taoist story, I guess, or a parable of. So essentially, and this can be told in many ways, but there's a father. This family, the father has his son. The son just got to the age of being able to be entered into the military, and he got chosen for a high rank. So his father was very proud. He was happy. 2 days later, the son, while riding his horse, fell off the horse, broke his leg very badly, and had to come home, had to be discharged. So the father was very upset. A week later, that entire regiment of which the son was a part was crushed. Everybody was killed. The father was now all of a sudden very happy with the son breaking his leg. And so on and so forth. You could take the story. Every iteration, the father can be happy or upset. But the sage, the wise person, in Taoist talk, doesn't judge any of it, just accepts. Okay, my son broke his leg on the horse, part of the path. Now because he broke his leg, he is still here with me, that sort of thing. So just trusting in that path as it unfolds.
No
matter what, even if the son had stayed with the regiment that had, been killed, like
Exactly.
in any direction, right?
Yeah.
Trusting the path any which way.
Because we don't know, and that's a common thread in A Course in Miracles. We cannot know all of the situations. We cannot know any of them, really. And to think that we do, when we think that we can, and then it's in our favor for us to act accordingly, that's when things go off path. We try to take control over the direction because we think that there's only one way to get somewhere, but really we're interfering with the process in that way.
Well, that's just a perfect example to bring it around of taking a belief and making it a treasure, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Let's see.
We defend our treasures. That's what was in this chapter.
Yeah.
We will defend them. Let's look and see what those treasures are.
And the treasure, I just have image of, an acorn. I would consider that a treasure, because what is that really? Is that a seed for a tree, or is that the beginning of a forest?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so when we have that treasure, which starts as a seed, but it's a true seed, and we nurture it, then that's where, watch out.
That's what these Sunday afternoons are for, I think. I've gotten a little addicted.
I've caught the addiction.
The bug.
I know there are a couple Sundays in my future where I won't be able to attend, and I'm already feeling like,
It's okay. Shabana just got me on board with uploading the recordings.
oh, cool.
Circle. I assume you're okay with that, Terry, right?
Oh yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah, was I supposed to verify something? Sorry.
Nah, just I guess now is the time to verify. Karen, I'm sure you're okay. And
Sure.
Paula,
Yeah, I was wondering what you were going to do with those two.
I have them. They're sitting somewhere, and I just need to put them on.
I always forget you're recording when I jump in here, like I'm doing right now, and get personal.
Well,
Oh.
so if you guys don't mind, before we close, I would like to share a poem, a lyrical poem that relates to this note. You'll be the first that I share this with. So let's see. Peace is not a counterculture. Peace allows counter to culture. Peace is culture, a simple state of being. We're asking, co-creating. My being cannot be taken away by your being. You're adding, interweaving. Your being cannot be taken away by my being. They're rising, self-realizing. Our being cannot be taken away by our being. We're rising, self-realizing. Our being cannot be taken away by our being.
I like it.
Yes.
I like
Wonderful.
Thank you.
I was seeing it. You know how you did that thing that you and I worked on with taking the words and.
Yeah.
Do you have it written down in that form?
I do.
You do.
I'll have to send you a picture.
I could feel that. Yeah, I'd love to see that. Yeah, thank you for reciting that.
That was
Did you
lovely.
write that poem? Or who wrote the poem?
Well, it was written through me last night.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought. That's what I thought.
Thank you guys for appreciating it.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I like it. It's funny too. Thank you.
Yeah, somehow truth becomes funny when we've gotten too far removed from it,
Yes.
But I suspect we'll probably be on the next section next week, or a section close. Chapter 2 kind of loads on the concepts, so it may be worth our time to take our time through chapter 2. I'm not sure when the reminder email will be sent, but it will be some point. And we will meet again next week.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
Samsung.
And Samsung, yes, Sam. Yep. That's all I see on my screen. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless.